Okay, welcome to Robotics 1. Once again, if you like what you are seeing in Robotics 1, I would encourage you to take Robotics 2 that will be offered next semester. And the class will be in the books available next week, and you can register as per issue deadline. So the problem that I want to solve today, first and foremost, is one of the problems from the assignments. And the problem is, I think, problem number 6, which is the Puma robot. 5. Okay, Puma robot. Now, Puma robot is a very, very popular industrial robot. The way Puma robot is constructed, and I'm going to draw the diagram. So I'm going to go straight to the kinematic diagram. You have a revolute joint. Then this revolute joint is attached to another revolute joint. And then if you think about it, this revolute joint is attached to another revolute joint. So something like this. And then this revolute joint gets extended. So what I want you to understand is, first and foremost, you have R, then you have another R, you have one more R, and at the end, you have end effector. Now, if you think about something called as the workspace of the robot, workspace of the robot is all the possible locations this end effector can reach. As you can see, the workspace for this robot is pretty robust. So if you look at what I'm going to show you, is I'm going to show you the reach. So for an example, if I were to construct a cylinder around the robot, where the center of the cylinder passes to the base frame, the center of the cylinder passes to the base frame, you agree with me that with this particular configuration, except for the dead zones, the robot can pretty much reach inside all the possible positions of the cylinder. So basically, robot can be used to 3D print a cylinder if you want to. However, there is no wrist articulation. So here, end effector is a spherical wrist. So what do I mean by spherical wrist? Spherical wrist is revolute joints. These 3 revolute joints are perpendicular to each other. And the distances between these revolute joints is 0. So basically, distance between each revolute joint is kind of 0. But practically, you cannot have a revolute joint with distance 0. So what we do is we construct a kinematic diagram, and we actually solve the forward kinematics, and then same trick we are going to use. So what we are going to do is, I'm going to set up the problem. So this is the 0th frame. This is the first frame. This is the second frame. And then you are going to have a third frame over here. So you are going to have a third frame. So this is the third frame. So once I solve the forward kinematics, for this manipulator, it is going to be at the end, what do I need to find? H03. That can be found out as 0H1, 1H2, 2H3. Do you agree with me? And everyone comfortable solving the first part of the manipulator? So this is called as manipulator. And since there are 3 joints, we call it 3 degree of freedom manipulator. And at the end, attach a spherical wrist. So this spherical wrist would comprise of, so for the spherical wrist, first you will have frame 3, you will have frame 4, and you will have frame 5. And then at the end of the spherical wrist, you are going to have so-called end effector. So basically, that is the 6th. And I will draw that, and then I will redraw it, and we will decide the frames. So the key idea is, I want you for a minute to look at the actual robot picture that you have in your assignment. Those 3 wrists are sort of compacted together, but physically, if you look at those 3 wrists, they are perpendicular to each other. Now, there are different ways this kinematic configuration can be drawn, but I'm going to start with one configuration, and there are many ways you can solve a spherical wrist. But always remember, whenever you have a manipulator like 6 degrees of freedom or even larger, it's not a good idea to start from the 0th frame all the way to end effector frame in one shot, because there is a reason you have certain joints in certain ways. The reason we have the spherical wrist at the end of this manipulator is we can get 3-dimensional articulation at the wrist. So imagine, here is what I'm trying to say. I want my end effector to go to certain position and have certain orientation. Here is a key thing. I want my end effector to go to certain position, and then I want to have it certain orientation. Desired, yeah, this is a data center problem. We can't help it. So get to desired position and spherical wrist. To get to desired orientation. Now I want to mention this is the forward kinematics problem that we are solving. In forward kinematics, given the joint, given the articulations, given the joint orientations, or given the displacements, we need to know where the end effector would be and what would be the orientation of the end effector. However, in next class, I'm going to solve DH parameters, and then I'm going to talk about the inverse kinematics. That is going to be part of your assignment 3, where you are actually going to build the robot, create the forward kinematics, create the inverse kinematics, and verify. So in inverse kinematics, you would be given the desired position and orientation. So I want to define at this point the inverse kinematics problem. In inverse kinematics problem, desired position, and orientation is given, and I want to find out the joint values, and these joint values could be either thetas or could be d's. So there are 2 types of joints. There is angular joint or the hinge, and there is a cylinder. So I need to find out thetas and d's. But please try to understand, forward kinematics is an easy problem wherein you plug in the numbers, you will get the answer. Inverse kinematics is a hard problem because for certain inverse kinematic configuration, you may have a solution, you may not have a solution, or you may have multiple solutions. So solving, think about like if I give you sine theta is equal to 1. It's a trigonometric function and there are multiple solutions possible. So for example, the solution could be 90 degrees, it could be 90 plus 360 degrees, and so on and so forth. So there are multiple solutions possible. And if you think about it, I want you to look at the tree that you have. So you could have multiple solutions for theta 1. For those multiple solutions of theta 1, you will have multiple solutions of theta 2. For those multiple solutions of theta 2, you would have multiple solutions of theta 3. And out of that chain, there could be only one or possibly two feasible solutions. And that is one of your assignments. So once you find all the inverse kinematic solution, you have to choose, looking at the geometry of the robot, is it possible to attend that particular configuration? And that is done in the software, because robot, you don't want the robot to collapse on itself, or you don't want robot to fold on itself, or you don't want the robot to get locked. Anyway, so the key here is, whenever we are going to solve inverse kinematics problem, whenever we have a manipulator more than 3 degrees of freedom, whenever we have a manipulator more than 3 degrees of freedom, we split the manipulator and solve in different parts. Otherwise, we will not get a consistent or at least a good solution for inverse kinematics. The spherical wrist is very important. In today's class, we are going to solve the spherical wrist, but please understand the orientation determination is a very tricky problem, because orientation can be defined in multiple ways. You can define orientation in terms of direction cosine matrices. Direction cosine matrices talk about, essentially, they are nothing but the 0R6, if I want to call them 0R6. Whatever you get is the direction cosine matrix, or you can define them in terms of Euler angles, roll, pitch, and yaw. And there are 12 combinations of Euler angles, and depending upon which industry you work in, whether you work in robotics, whether you work in aviation, or you work in some other industry, you use different combinations of Euler angles. But not to worry, MATLAB has a built-in function, ROTM to Euler and Euler to rot. So basically, MATLAB can convert rotation matrices to Euler angles and Euler angles to rotation matrices, but you just have to be very comfortable with the different conventions in Euler angles. And many a times, Euler angles cannot be used because they are singular. And I will explain it to you in just a second with spherical manipulator. Euler angles can become singular. And I will tell you how to deal with that singularity. So in today's class, first and foremost, I'm going to solve the spherical manipulator. And spherical manipulator, there are multiple ways you can draw spherical manipulator, but I'm going to draw something like this. There is no right or wrong here. So this is the first revolute joint. Then I'm going to assume that I have a second revolute joint, which is perpendicular to this. And then I'm going to assume that I have a third revolute joint. And some of you are going to notice this immediately, but I'll tell you the reason for drawing this. So this is one possible configuration of this revolute joint. So this is one possible configuration of the revolute joint. And believe it or not, here is what is happening. So you have this first revolute joint, you have this second revolute joint, and you have this third revolute joint. And please note, in this particular configuration, a strange thing has happened. The first revolute joint and the third revolute joint are pointing in the same direction. Do you agree with me? So if I have three revolute joints, let me pose this problem slightly differently. If I have, somebody asked a question in chat. Yeah, spherical wrist again. Spherical wrist is three revolute joints perpendicular to each other. That is the meaning of spherical wrist. So 3 revolute joints perpendicular to each other. Now what I want to say here is, in this particular configuration, I want you to start with our basic assumption. So I'm gonna have maybe one theta here. So I'm gonna call this theta 1. I have one theta here, and I'm gonna call this one theta here. And this is not the frame. I'm just trying to say that there are 3 thetas. So 3 angles. Typically, if you have 3 angles, then our expectation is we have 3 degrees of freedom. Do you agree with me? We have 3 degrees of freedom. But unfortunately, in this configuration, 1 degree of freedom is lost. Do you agree with me? Because theta 1, even if I rotate the robot in the theta 1 direction, or even if I rotate the robot in theta 3 direction, so my end effector is here. And I want you to think about the point on the end effector. Whether I rotate theta 1 or whether I rotate theta 3, my end effector is going to remain at the same position. So even though I activate theta 1 or activate theta 2, the result is one and the same. Everyone understands this? Yeah.
So does that mean for something to count as a spherical joint, each joint needs to be perfect, of the 3 joints needs to be perpendicular to the last? But
so actually, yeah. So this condition is called as gimbal lock. And gimbal lock is a very dangerous condition. If you take robotics too, when we teach, when we talk about aerial robotics, gimbal lock is when the aircraft is pitching 90 degrees up. At that time, roll and yaw, they combine together. Exactly the same thing happens. So if you look at the roll, pitch, and yaw, when aircraft is pitching up, the roll and yaw, they are in the same direction. So this is what happens in gimbal lock. When gimbal lock occurs, you cannot solve the problem. Basically, your formulation breaks down. So what we need to do is, there are techniques to avoid the gimbal lock. And before I talk about techniques to avoid gimbal lock, not if you think about planes, only fighter planes can do 90-degree pitch. The helicopters cannot do it. The commercial planes cannot do it. So gimbal lock is only possible in the case of missiles and basically the fighter planes. So in that case, we cannot use the angles. We cannot use theta 1, theta 2, theta 3, but we use quaternions. If you want to know what quaternions are, I would recommend watching the quaternion explanation by 3 Blue 1 Brown. So he talks about quaternions from graphical perspective, and that is very nice. But that being said, I wouldn't solve the spherical wrist in this configuration because it's very difficult to solve, difficult to visualize. What I'm going to do is, just like a student pointed out a minute ago, online student, that I'm going to redraw the kinematic diagram, something like this. And now the things will be very clear. And this is something familiar to what we have been solving so far. So I will solve the robot, the spherical wrist, in this kinematic configuration. Do you agree with me? This is the exact same configuration. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to construct, remember the rule number 1, G axis has to pass through the joint. So I'm going to call this Z0. This is X0. This is Y0. The next frame is Z1. y1, x1. Then I have, so g2, x2, y2. And I did not go through the details to make sure all the 4 rules are observed or not. But at this point, I want you to look at it and tell me if this frame configuration satisfies all the 4 rules or not. Which ones? Last one, there is no joint, so you can rotate. Frame 1 and 2, they don't. Okay. So now let me ask you this question. Is there anything we can do about it or no? So this is the best. So out of 4, 1 rule is not satisfied. Do you agree with me? Okay. Now what I want to do is, the interesting thing about spherical wrist is the distances are 0. So we will solve both ways. So so typically this distance is A1. This distance is A2. And this distance is A3. Now, even though for the sake of simplicity and understanding, some question, online students question, let me open up the chat window. Yeah, so correct. So now everybody agrees that this frame violates one of the 4 conditions. So the idea is, what do we do when the conditions are violated? We translate the frame. Do you agree with me? But in the case of spherical wrist, a point to be noted is my distances A1, A2, and A3 are 0. So in other words, the frames are already translated, so to speak. So I'm not interested, this is very important, I'm really not interested in the last column of my H01, H12, H23 matrix. But what I would do is, if you are not comfortable, I would strongly recommend that translate the frame, use A1, A2, A3, derive the final homogeneous transformation, and then set A1, A2, A3 is equal to 0, and you will get the exact same answer. If you are not comfortable, I mean, if you say, okay, the rules are not matching, what I want to do is follow the same technique, translate the frame, work out the problem. No problem, you can work out the problem the exact same way. Only thing is your A2 and A3 will get added. And then at the end, when you do the multiplications, you will set A1 is equal to 0, A2 is equal to 0, A3 is equal to 0. Yeah.
So, if we are not translating in this font, like we are taking like A1, A2, and A3. So as it is breaking the rules right now. So in the previous problem also, then it should be, you would be getting the same answer even without translating.
No. Let me finish the spherical wrist problem first, and then we'll talk about the previous problem. Okay, just bear with me, because I don't know if you understand this, but even though I have drawn the spherical wrist like this, you can draw the spherical wrist in a different configuration as well. So I don't want you to get confused. So I want to give you the exact same technique, same process that we used so far. Let me solve this problem, and then we will talk about the potential variations that you can solve. Any other questions before I actually write down the rotation matrices? Okay, so first and foremost, I'm going to start with my 0R1. 0R1. My 0R1 matrix is going to be cosine theta 1 minus sine theta 1. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sine theta 1, cosine theta 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. Do you agree with me? This is the only matrix that we are using. And not to forget, I have my projection matrix x1, y1, z1, x0, y0, z0. Can someone tell me this projection matrix real quick? 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, -1, 0. Is this right? So 0 R1. And actually for the spherical race, you really don't have to form the 0H1. You can just do 0R1, 1R2, and 2R3 and solve the problem. But let me still work out the same way. So first row, first column, this becomes cosine theta 1, 0, sine theta 1, 0, sine theta 1, 0, minus cosine theta 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. The next, I'm gonna write 0H1. And in this particular case, 0H1 is actually very simple. Cosine theta 1, 0, sine theta 1. Oh, actually, I went ahead and wrote, sorry. Okay, so yeah, bear with me. This is 0H1. Everyone understood that I got 0H1? And there are zeros because the distances are actually zeros. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to write 1R2 is cosine theta 2 minus sine theta 2, sine theta 2, cosine theta 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. And the projection matrix, probably you are expert by now, but still I'm going to write the projection matrix x2, y2, z2, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0. Okay, now I'm going to take a shortcut. 1 H2 is going to be minus sine theta 2, 0, cosine theta 2, 0, cosine theta 2, 0, sine theta 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. And the last matrix, I'm going to try to find some space here, which is 2, 2R3. 2R3 is cosine theta 3, sine theta 3, minus sine theta 3, cosine theta 3, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. And please note, frame number 3 and frame number 2, they are aligned. So that's why it's multiplied by an identity matrix. So that means 2H3 is going to be cosine theta 3 minus sine theta 3, 0, 0, sine theta 3, cosine theta 3, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. Now at this point, what I would do is, I would perform the multiplication in MATLAB. 0H1 multiplied by 1H2 multiplied by 2H3. You want me to show this multiplication in MATLAB, or everyone is comfortable handling MATLAB? Any questions here? Now, please note, if you look at this matrix 0H3, and let me write this down because it's important. If you look at 0H3, this 0H3 matrix, 0H3 matrix will have this unique structure. Zero R3 0 0 0 0 0 0 1. So 0 R3 is the orientation matrix that we are interested in. What this is telling me? This is telling me orientation of end effector with respect to frame 0. Now, this orientation is defined in terms of joint angles. This is very important. This orientation is defined in terms of joint angles. However, this orientation can be defined in terms of something called as Euler angles. Now, what are Euler angles? And for Euler angles, let me draw. You have, this is your Z naught, this is your Y naught, and this is your X naught. So please note, this is the exact same frame convention that we used. So if you look at frame 0, I have redrawn frame 0. Now I have this 0R3 that is telling me the orientation of the end effector with respect to X0, Y0, and Z0 given in terms of joint angles. Everyone understood this? This is very important. Those are in terms of joint angles. What do I mean by that? That if I rotate theta 1 and this is actually an important point, because there is a concept of body angles and there is a concept of inertial angles. And this will be very, very important when we try to solve the forward inverse kinematics problems. So first and foremost, I want you to think about it. Theta 1, theta 2, and theta 3, they are attached to the body. Do you agree with me? Theta 1, theta 2, and theta 3 are attached to the body, which means if I rotate theta 1, that cylindrical joint is supposed to rotate. If I rotate theta 2, that cylindrical joint is supposed to rotate. If I rotate theta 3, then that cylindrical joint is supposed to rotate. Do you agree with me? However, if you look at the final solution, which is the product of 0H1 multiplied by 1H2 multiplied by 2H3, this final product is telling you the orientation of the end effector frame, which is frame 3 with respect to frame 0. Do you agree with me? In terms of body rotation angles. So in terms of joint angles. However, this is not the most ideal representation, because this is like a chicken and egg problem. And why is this a chicken and egg problem? Let me tell you. Because when you try to solve for the robot, you will not say move the first joint to 20 degrees, move the second joint to 30 degrees, move the third joint to 40 degrees. You will just say, I want my end effector oriented 20 degrees about X, 30 degrees about Y, and maybe 70 degrees about Z. And from that, I need to find out what should be these individual body angles so that that desired orientation can be achieved. I repeat the problem. You are never going to have something like you would say, hey, I want to get to this particular orientation. It's easy. I would do theta is equal to 50 degrees, theta 2 is equal to 30 degrees, theta 3 is equal to 50 degrees, and I get to that. It's never going to happen. What you would specify is you will specify that my end effector should be oriented in certain position with respect to x0, y0, and z0. And the way most of the times this is specified is known as Euler angles. Those are called inertial angles, and this is very super duper important. And some of you, if you decide to work in the areas of navigation, tracking, or GPS, IMU based type of stuff, then this will be super important. So first and foremost, this zeroth frame is also called as inertial frame. Why this is called as inertial frame? Because this is fixed. And this frame is super duper important. All the dynamics equations that we are going to write will be in inertial frame. We will not write equations of motion in the body axis, even though it's possible, but we will not, because that makes our life difficult. Newton's law is valid in the inertial frame. And if you want to work in the relative frame, then you use theory of relativity. But we will stick to Newton's law, and we will always resolve forces, we'll always find acceleration, we'll always find velocities in the inertial frame. So in the inertial frame, I'm going to define this angle, which is called as yaw. Rotation about z naught is called as yaw, and that is given as psi. Rotation about x naught is called as pitch, which is called as theta. And rotation about y is called as psi, actually psi, phi, and theta. So this is called as roll. So this is theta. This is called as phi, and this is called as psi. So you have these three angles, and this is super duper important in the case of an aircraft. So for an example, if you have an aircraft, whenever you try to study the aircraft, missile, or any dynamics, even the ground vehicle, you are always going to use, depending upon what is your coordinate frame of choice, you are going to use x, y, and z coordinate frame. And usually they use something called as north, east, down. So what you have is you have north, you have east, and you have down. So they use north, east, and down in ED. And then this basically is your z naught. This is your x naught, and this is your y naught. So this rotation, now please note, since z axis is going down, this is yaw, this is pitch, and this is roll. So if you go to robotics 2, aerial robotics, that is the sign convention we'll use. North is down is the sign convention that is used in aircraft community, UAV analysis, UGV analysis, and so on. And roll, pitch, and yaw. So usually when you look at the problem, they will tell you that the end effector orientation is 30-degree roll, 50-degree pitch, and 70-degree yaw. So what you want to do is you want to take that information, convert that into rotation matrices, and then find out the joint angle. Yeah. I thought this was right hand, north, z, x, and y. Okay, so it needs to go out this way. You're right. Yeah. Actually, it depends upon whether you are following US or British. So British use left-hand coordinate system. So in that case, it comes out, but you're right. So basically, this is north, east, down. No, north is down. So I think then probably north, east. So north, wait a sec. North, east, down. I think I'm making a mistake here, but no, what? So Z has to be downwards. Z has to be downwards, and then north is forward. So I'll check and get back to you. But they use north is down. Oh yeah. Roll around x-axis. Correct. I made a mistake. So basically, anyway, I will talk about this in robotics too. So robotics. Yeah. And if you come for robotics too, I promise to I will have answers. And there are about 7 frames in aerial robots. So we will talk about not only one frame, but the 7 frames. East will be on the other side. Okay, so we'll talk about in robotics too. So my apologies. So inertial frame. Just look at the orientation. All these orientations are positive, and these are called as Euler angles. And it's a very, very interesting problem. Complicated one, that to get Euler angles from the strap down inertial system. So basically, if they will in aircraft, they will have 3 gyroscopes and 3 accelerometers perpendicular to each other, mounted at the CG of the robot or of the aircraft. And it's a very interesting problem. From those angles, those are called body angles, to estimate inertial angles, and these are called inertial angles. So it is an important problem to get to from body angles to inertial angles. But as far as robotics 1 is concerned, let me give you the MATLAB command. If you want to convert EUL to ROTM, and then you have to specify the angles, roll, pitch, and yaw in radians. And then MATLAB will give you the rotation matrix, and then you use that rotation matrix to find out the joint angles. Okay, any questions about the material that we have discussed so far? Yeah.
Sorry, but could you spell that last word again?
It's so this is a MATLAB command. EUL to ROT. EUL to ROT. Euler to rotation matrix. ROTM actually. And then you can actually specify what coordinate system that you have. Okay, the next part is this is where we start with something called as the DH parameters. And DH parameters, this is another technique, DH parameters. This is another technique to solve a forward kinematics problem. But this technique is sort of a recipe. So what you have is, you have step-by-step approach. So what you do is you follow those steps and construct something called as a table. So what are we gonna do in DH parameter technique? In DH parameter technique, first and foremost, we are going to set up the coordinate frame, and we will use the 4 rules. So first, set up coordinate frame using 4 rules, and by now you know those rules very well. Then the idea is, for each frame we are going to get 4 parameters. So decide decide 4 parameters. These are called DH parameters for each frame. And these parameters, there are 2 parameters that describe the angle theta and alpha. And then there is alpha. And there is 2 parameters. They talk about the distances. So distance 1 and distance 2. And what happens is, once you construct something called as the DH parameter table, and let me tell you, if you refer to the textbooks on robotics, majority of the textbooks, they use this DH parameter technique. But let me tell you, I would not recommend using DH parameters, because I will tell you the cases where the DH parameter formulation would fail, but the rotation matrix formulation will always work out. So this is the value of theta. This is the value of alpha. This is the value of R. This is the value of D. And then you are going to have joints. So this talks about, so you will always have the 0th frame, no matter what. Please note, you will have 0th frame, but there will be, when you go from 0 to 1, and when you go from 1 to 2, you are going to have the values of, say, theta 1, alpha 1, R1, D1. When you go from frame number 1 to frame number 2, you are going to have theta 2, alpha 2, R2, and D2. And I will tell you exactly how to find those values, but there are very specific rules. And those rules, like, you have to follow the exact rules to get the correct formulation. Then once you find out theta 1, alpha 1, R1, and D1, then what you can do is you can construct something called as this DH parameter matrix. So H is equal to, say, for an example, this is given as, this is the most general form of DH parameter table, theta N1 minus, actually I should use here, it's a big table. So this is the homogeneous transformation, cosine theta n minus sine theta n cosine alpha n sine theta n sine alpha n Rn theta n sine theta n cosine theta n cosine alpha n minus cosine theta n sine alpha n Rn sine theta n 0 sine alpha n cosine alpha n, then dn 0 0 0 1. So now here is what we are going to do. And again, we don't derive this table, this matrix, we don't derive. What we do is, when we try to attempt the problem using DH parameters, we fill in the blanks. We construct this table, and then here, if I want to go from 0 to 1, I'm gonna,
Is it Rn theta n or Rn cos?
oh, Rn cosine theta. Yeah, cosine theta. So 0 1. So basically, since I'm going from the 0th frame to first frame, since I'm going from 0th frame to first frame, my n will be 1. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take all these values in this first row and plug these values in here to find out my homogeneous transformation 0h1. Everyone understood this? If I want to find out 0h2, same thing. If I want to find out 0h2, then substitute the same table, this exact same table, substitute theta 2, alpha 2, R2, and D2. And then you are going to get your homogeneous transformation. If you want to perform the forward kinematics, everything else remains same. 0h2 is equal to 0h1, 1h2. Now, it is interesting to note that there are some rules on how to pick up values of theta, how to pick up values of alpha, how to pick up values of D. There are specific rules. Those rules must be followed. Otherwise, your forward kinematics will go completely wrong. That's why I'm not in the favor of DH parameters, because to me, it appears to be like a black box. You follow the rules, plug in the numbers, and then if something is wrong, then you don't know whether your answer is correct or incorrect. And also there are certain cases of robot that I will not discuss today or in next class, but I will show you when the DH parameter fails. So as far as possible, stick to the rotation matrices formulation, but it's good to know DH parameters, because every robotics book that you use, I don't think that rotation matrix formulation is discussed in any robotics books, but you can check and let me know if it is discussed anywhere. But follow the rotation matrices, that is more intuitive. Everyone understood this? Are you ready for 4 additional rules for DH parameters? So there are 4 rules. Okay, now I had to crack my famous joke about the rules. So there are 2 rules to be successful in life. Everyone understood? There are 2 rules to be successful in life. Rule number 1, don't tell all the rules. So let me give you DH parameter rules. So DH parameter rules are: and I believe you me that you are going to see initially, you will say, oh, these rules are super complex. But once you start work through problems, you will realize. And to be honest with you, I don't remember these rules. Every time I try to solve the problem using DH parameters, I need to refer to these rules. So theta rotation is about Gn minus 1, so that Xn minus 1 aligns with Xn. So this is a little bit tricky, because now the rotation is about Zn minus 1. But even though the rotation is about Zn minus 1, why are we carrying out that rotation? So that Xn minus 1 gets aligned with Xn. I want you to understand. This rule is theta rotation is about Zn minus 1, the previous frame. Why do we do that rotation? So that the x-axis of the previous frame gets aligned with the x-axis of the next frame. Everyone understood this? That's what it means. Okay, rule number 2. Alpha rotation is about Xn, so that Gn minus 1 aligns with Gn. And please notice, theta rotation is about Zn minus 1, but alpha rotation is about Xn, the next frame. Everyone understood this? Alpha rotation is about the next frame, so that the previous Zn minus 1, the previous Z axis, gets aligned with the current Z axis. Okay. The third rule is R is the displacement. R is the displacement between n minus 1 to n. This is displacement between the frame n minus 1 to frame n, along. This is the distance, so it cannot be around. It has to be along xn. And fourth rule is d displacement is between n minus 1 to n along g n minus 1. Are you with me so far? Oh, don't worry. Well, I'm gonna work out maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 problems with DH parameters. So by the time we are done with those problems, you'll be fairly comfortable. And then I will show you the technique when the DH parameter fails. So I'm gonna start with the basic problem, and bear with me. So this is the easy problem that we solved. I'm gonna use 2 revolute joints. So this is the revolute joint number 1, and this is the revolute joint number 2. And this is a very simple problem that we worked out in the very first class. Remember this, that you have a robot like this. This is a planar robot. And we worked this problem out using the planar technique. And we also solved this problem using the rotation matrices. So this is R perpendicular to R. Solving the problem, step 1, always coordinate system. Z0, correct me if I'm wrong, X0, Y0, Z1, X1, Y1, and then C2, X2, Y2. I'm gonna add my thetas, theta 1, theta 2, and there is no theta 3. Everyone clear? Okay, now what I need to do is, I need to construct this DH parameter table. And that is where the most of the energy goes, okay? So I'm gonna draw a very nice big table. So how many joints do I have here? There are 2 joints, theta 1 and theta 2. So this DH parameter table will have 2 rows. One, 2, 3, and 4. So this is my 0th frame that I ignore. This is my first frame. This is my second frame. Then what I have here is, I have theta. Actually, let me use a different color. I have theta, I have alpha, I have R, and I have D. So I'm going from 0th frame to the first frame, and let me give you the distances. So this distance, I'm gonna call this for the sake of discussion. You can, so this distance, I just want to confirm these answers with a planar robot. If this robot is in a plane, do you agree with me that this distance is going to be 0? If this robot is in the plane, the way I had drawn on the top, this distance is going to be 0. And the reason I want to set this DH parameter for the first problem like this is, once you perform the multiplication, you can easily make sure that the calculations that we are getting from this robot are similar to what we are getting from the other robot. So first and foremost, I want you to focus on these 2 joints, the 0 joint and the first joint. And I want to look at here, and let's try to identify theta 1. theta 1 is the rotation about Zn minus 1. On what joint we are? We are on joint number 1. Do you agree with me? So my n is 1. Do you agree with me? So what is my Zn minus 1? Zn minus 1 is Z0. Do you agree with me? So rotation about Z0. What is the rotation about Z0? Theta 1. And the rotation should be about Z0 in such a way that xn minus 1. What is my xn minus 1? X0 aligns with x1. Do you agree with me? But the trick here is that has to be valid for all the values of theta. This rotation has to be valid for all the values of theta. And I want you to see that right now, this is 0, but for any non-zero theta 1, this would be just theta 1. Once again, I'm going to repeat this because initially it takes time to get familiar. So theta rotation is about Zn minus 1. So theta rotation is about Z0. So theta 1 is about Z0 so that x0 aligns with x1 for all the values of joint articulation. So this becomes theta 1. Now alpha is rotation about xn. So rotation about x1 so that Z0 aligns with Zn. Rotation about x1 so that Z0 aligns with Z1. Can you see that Z1 and Z0 are already parallel to each other? So this angle is 0. R distance is the displacement between the frame n minus 1 that I have shown here. This is a 0th frame. So the distance between the 0th frame and the first frame along xn, and this distance I'm going to write down here as a1. This distance is a1, and d distance is the distance between the displacement n minus 1 and n along Zn minus 1, which means the 0th frame and first frame about Z0. And if you want, you can just say this is maybe, I would just call this C1, which is actually 0. So it can be C1 is equal, I'm going to say C1 is equal to 0. Are you with me so far? I'm going to proceed to the next joint. And for next joint, I want you to focus on frame 1 and frame 2. Frame 1 and frame 2. Again, follow the rules. First rule, theta is the rotation about Zn minus 1. So the rotation is about now Z1 because our n is 2. This is my n. My n is 2, but my Zn minus 1 is Z1. So the rotation is about Z1 so that xn minus 1. So x1 gets aligned with x2, and that is 0 plus theta 2 for all joints. Alpha is the rotation xn, which is x2, so that about x2, so that Zn minus 1, which is Z1, gets aligned with Z2, and that is actually 0. R is the distance between the frame 2 and frame 1 along x2, and that distance I'm going to say this is a2. A2. And the last is the displacement between n minus 1 to n along Zn minus 1, and I'm going to call this distance, say C2, and this C2 is 0 for the planar case. So this is the hard part. Once your DH parameter table is formulated, what you will do is you will just plug and chug, which means basically for H01, you will go on to this first row, grab these values of theta 1, alpha 1, R1 and D1 and plug it in this matrix. This matrix is not going to change. Only thing is when you go from 0 to 1, this will be 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 and so on, R1 and D1. When you go from 1 to 2, then it will be 1 H2. And then you will essentially you will have the same. Actually, let me take it back. You will have a homogeneous transformation matrix that may or may not look like the homogeneous transformation matrix that you have found out from your rotation matrices. But at the end, when you perform the multiplication, your forward kinematic solution will be the same. So I think in assignment 3, I have asked you to solve the problem using the DH parameters and again by rotation matrices and forward kinematics and inverse kinematics. So these are the 4 rules, and don't get intimidated by these rules. Initially, it takes time to get familiar, but afterwards you would be able to do these rules, apply these rules quickly. I'm going to stop here, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yeah. Yes, this is a tool for forward kinematics. Yeah. Have you understood this problem? Okay. So let me work out 3 or 4 more problems, and then I will talk about the exceptions. But this could be confusing. Yes.
As you solved a spherical problem, right? So we didn't consider the rules. Like we took the action in such a way that
No, you didn't observe the rules because the distance was 0. It didn't matter.
so we made like D is equal to 0. Right? So if it is in the previous condition as well, so even if we consider D is some value, it should be correct because in the rotation matrix we are getting the projections of.
Yeah, you can work out the problem. It will give you the same answer.
That will be getting the same answer, right? Even if we are not following the rules.
Yeah, because it's a rotation matrix, because the distances are 0.
Why is each parameter followed when it has more restrictions than the?
I don't know. You tell me. I really don't know. If I were to write the book, I would start with the rotation matrix.